Hey guys, welcome back to What the Fat. We are getting close to episode 100, and you guys have been sending me a bunch of ideas, and I really appreciate it. I really want to do something special, or at least launch or plan something special for episode 100, because it's just, it's 100 episodes of What the Fat. It's something that I just decided to start one day. The team was like, hey, you should do a podcast. I was like, yeah, I love talking to people, just being real, authentic, just talking about random stuff. And it's crazy that we're almost at 100. So let me know if you have any ideas about what we should do for episode 100. Let me know. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. Shoot us a message. You guys will be the first ones because I appreciate you guys listening to What the Fat to know that very shortly we are going to have a website. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. We're going to have a website that'll be solely for Dr. Ryan Lowery stuff, blogs, podcast, maybe even some like cool Make Positivity Louder stuff. So stay tuned for that. You guys will be the first ones to know because I appreciate you guys subscribing to the podcast, leaving comments, interacting, sharing these. It means the world to me. So I really appreciate it. So today I want to talk about something. I just want to chat because I think it's something that has gotten brought up over and over again. I've gotten hit on it a bunch of times. People have hit me up and are like, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" It's funny because some of my family members hit me up on this and said, "Hey, aren't you glad we were poor?" And I was like, "Well, that's kind of funny, but also kind of sad." But yes, in some regard, I am. But it has to do with this college scandal, and I think that's something that's really hot in the news right now. I didn't know about it because, like I've told you guys over and over again, I don't really watch the news. It's not my thing. I think they focus on too much negative junk that's going out in the world. But this was an interesting topic because I have some thoughts, and I think I have a little different perspective, and maybe just shine light. And some people might not agree with me on this. But in essence, it's a really interesting concept. For those of you who don't know what's going on, I guess there are these big time celebrities and people who have a ton of money that have basically been paying. They paid this guy who is really the grand master of all this stuff to either have someone else take their kids' SATs or whatever, and or change the results of their SATs, or have their kids be looked at as like college athletes when in reality they weren't college athletes. And it's just crazy. And there's one girl in particular, she's from a show that we all used to watch when we were younger, that they're like blowing up. They're like calling her out because she's probably the most well known, I guess, out of the bunch. She was on Full House, and they're calling her out, and she's getting hit left and right, and her daughter's getting hit left and right, and she was this YouTube star and lost all the sponsorship. And who knows, she might go to jail, and probably rightfully so for going the route that she did. But in essence, I want to hit on a couple different points, and I'm just going to talk from the heart here because this is how I feel about topics like this. First and foremost, I hope everyone understands that this isn't a new thing. And I hope we understand how broken the system is itself. And what I mean by that is this. If your parents went to USC, you are more likely to get into USC. If your parents made a large donation to USC, you're more likely to get into USC. If your parents built a building at US, and I'm not even just calling out USC, I'm saying any college in general, you are more likely to get into that university. You have to keep in mind that there are people behind the admissions process. Like, and coming from someone who used to work for the university, I used to be one of those jerks that called people and said, hey, alumni that just graduated a year ago, I know you have $100,000 in debt, but would you like to donate to the alumni fund? And I used to kill it. Like I think over my time while I did that when I was in school, I've raised over like $40,000 or $50,000 for the university, just cold calling and asking people to fundraise in some regard. But I know there are personal people behind those admissions things, and when they see, hey, this person did this, they were more involved in this, their family made a huge donation, well, they're probably more likely to be a little bit more favorable on like a lower GPA or not as high of a class rank. And I actually just saw someone in the office here brought something in talking about it, about how someone came out and all these people that were in admissions were like, yeah, like that's how it is. We literally sit around a round table, we talk, we say, hey, A or B. All right, well, this person sounds like he's better off. His family made a significant impact. He's obviously close to the university. He's going to be vested in the university. Let's take him. So, in some form or fashion, like, it's a good thing that this is blowing up because it's bringing to light how broken the system is, period. But in some fashion, like, this isn't new. This isn't something that just started overnight. This has been going on, and this is one of the problems with academia is, in some regard, it's who you know, and it's what you have. Even beyond money. Like, yeah, money's a huge factor, is a huge factor in this, but it's a huge, huge thing. Like, athletes, people who are legitimately athletes, like, I've seen athletes who have horrible GPAs get accepted because they're more likely to produce for the university. Now, people can question that and go, is that right for the university? That's wrong. They're ultimately taking the place of my son or daughter or whoever that could be admitted to the university. These are all things that have been happening for decades. And I think what people often miss is that college or universities themselves are a business. They are, as much as we look at them as like higher education, and there are pros, and I will get into that, it is a business. They make an absolute killing on putting people in classes and driving them to school. So at the end of the day, does it really matter what they're doing or what they're going through? At the end of the day, they're focused on their core business and how that happens and how they raise money and how they bring in these donors and how everyone that's involved in the university makes money is ultimately what matters to them. And so I was fortunate to go to a great university, but still, I guarantee you there are some people that if at University of Tampa that if their mom, dad, sister, brother, grandfather made a large donation, they were probably looked a little bit more favorably upon to be admitted to the university than someone else who has the exact same GPA, exact same class rank, exact same extracurricular activities. I guarantee you that person whose family made a donation would be more inclined. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying what happened or what transpired and what these people did is okay. Absolutely not. Like, you shouldn't do that, and I'm going to go into reasons why I think it's probably the worst decision they've ever made for their kid. But in some regard, I just hope. I like to play the other side. Like, I'm really open to perspective. You guys have heard me talk about that all the time. And the reality of the situation is that this isn't something new. This isn't something that just started happening. Yes, it happened because they were paying people for their SATs or they were paying people to get them into schools. But in essence, like indirectly, it sort of has been happening a lot for the last couple of decades. Now, why I think it's a horrible thing. I think it's terrible. I think what they did is silly, but I do think there's some vagueness in what I'm saying. What I mean by that is, one, they're teaching their kids that, hey, even if you aren't good enough, you could just buy in and figure out something. In some form or fashion, that's the worst thing you could ever teach your kid because they think, oh, mommy and daddy have money, so I don't have to work for it, and I can just buy my way into things. On the other side of things, like in some aspect that there is a reality to what they're saying. Like, you do get some power with money. And as sickening and as bad, and I'm not advocating for this, but as bad as it is, in some aspect, like, you saw it. They did it in colleges. You see it all the time. People pay for themselves to get into political positions of power or whatever. Like, money is power, and I think a lot of times people have a negative connotation with money because of how it's utilized, and this is one of those cases. But in some regard, there's an actual truth to it. But in the other regard, it shouldn't be the be-all, end-all, and I think they're teaching them a very poor lesson. And where I stand on this is really somewhere in the middle of understanding, like, you hear Gary Vee talk about it all the time. He talks about, like, is it necessary to go to college? And what was the ultimate point of what these people did? Well, the ultimate point was they wanted to get them into these prestigious universities, like high-ranking, well-known universities. The question is why? Why does that even matter? First and foremost, if your parents are ridiculously rich and you're already a YouTube star, you already are like, hey, I'm not going to put forth the effort, what the hell does it matter what university you go to? It is solely for an external appearance, which is the most frustrating part. Now, if you were going for an actual education, a little bit of a different story, but ultimately it depends on what the outcome is. Because at the end of the day, people can decide to go to, hey, I'm going to apply to whatever school I want to. But I think we live in a day and age now where that's starting to matter less and less. What I mean by that is like people think that, hey, if I go to USC or Penn State or where I'm from in New Jersey, Rutgers, or I go to these like, or Princeton or some of these like elite schools or higher up schools, they go, oh, I have a better opportunity to get a job. Well, that depends. And this comes from someone who's hired a lot of people and has done a lot of jobs kind of leading up to what I do now. Is like, to be honest, like, and with all due respect, I'm going to say this bluntly, I don't give a shit. Like, when someone comes in and applies for a position with something that we're doing, I really do not care if you went to Princeton. I really do not care if you went to the community college down the road. What I care about is the results. I care about who you are as a human being, and I care about how you're going to fit within the team and the organization and buy into the mission and vision. That's it. Like, if someone comes in right now to keydrink.com, to Aspie, to any of the things that we have going on, and starts waving around like, hey, I'm from Princeton, I'm like, cool, congratulations. What have you done? What can you do for me today? Like, I would literally take that probably and rip it up in front of them and go, cool, let's talk about you as a human being. Let's talk about what you can actually produce, because that's what matters. And I think a lot more people are more inclined to think the way I think than think like, oh, hey, this is this person from Princeton, they must be good. Or, oh, this is this person from USC, they have a better chance at getting a job. And I think that's such a false sense of security for so many people, and it leaves them, one, in a shit ton of debt from going to these schools and universities because they're more expensive. And two, it leaves us with this false sense of hope of like, oh, just because I have USC or Penn State or UCLA behind my name, I'm more inclined to get a better job. Like, you're not. I think we're at a day and age where that's no longer true. I think there might be some exceptions, and I'm not going to go out and say there's not. Like, if you go to Harvard or Princeton or something, and you're a medical doctor, you probably look a lot better than someone who went to some medical doctor school in the Bahamas, right? I get it. I'm not blind to that fact. But in essence, like, if you're trying to become anything else, an accountant, a businessman, an athletic trainer, a researcher, a photographer slash filmmaker, like, just going to UCLA itself, and I'm talking the school itself, is it that much better than going to somewhere else where you're going to save some money and not have to go through so many like, if you want a huge university, by all means. But if you want something that's more intimate, is it better off? I don't know that. And this is coming from someone, again, who went to a pretty small school. I think we had like 7,000 or 8,000 students at University of Tampa, and we made our own path. And that's the key point of this entire thing, whether you are a student that's listening to this podcast or you are a parent listening to this podcast thinking like, wow, maybe, like, I guarantee you there are parents that are listening to this right now and are like, wow, if I had the money, I might do that. And I'm telling you, right, or wow, those parents are stupid. Whatever your thought process is, understand this, whether it's you as the kid or it's you as the parent kind of looking out for the best interest of your kid. What matters is what's going to take place outside of the classroom. I promise you that. So it doesn't matter if you're sitting in a UCLA classroom. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in a University of Tampa classroom. What matters isn't what's going on inside of that classroom. What matters is what transpires outside of that classroom. It's what transpires, what connections you make. What are you doing in your spare time? Are you hanging around the right crowd? That ultimately is what's going to dictate your future. It's what dictated my future. If you think about it, and I tell this to people all the time, like, I went to University of Tampa, and I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Not because of what I learned inside of the classrooms, but because of who I met. I met some of the best friends of my entire life. I learned how to fend for myself, live on my own. I played baseball with an incredible team who won a national championship. And I met one of the best human beings I've ever met in my life, a mentor, a professor, and now a business partner of mine, Dr. Jacob Wilson. And none of that would have happened if I just went to class, went back to my dorm room, and played Call of Duty. And that wouldn't have happened if I would have went to UCLA or USC or some other place. Like, it happened because I went to where I went to and I made the opportunity happen for myself. It was there, I just had to go out and grab it. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, if I just go to one of these big name schools, everything's going to be all grand and fine. Trust me, it's not. I've had friends that have gone to some of the best schools in the country, and now they're like, they graduate and they're like, well, I have a degree, now what do I do? To be honest, like, a degree doesn't mean jack anymore. Like, it's important for a lot of things. Don't get me wrong. I think it's very important for like, if you and it's a necessity for things like if you want to become a medical doctor, you want to get your PhD, like, it's an absolute necessity. But in the grand scheme of things, like, if you're trying to become an entrepreneur or a businessman, there are people that are extremely successful who don't even go to college. And so what I think is this, and this is what I tell people. I go and I talk to high school kids. I'm actually going to go in June to go talk to my high school and give away a couple of scholarships that I do every single year. And I tell them the same thing. Like, ultimately, what's going to dictate your success in life is internally your work ethic, who you're surrounding yourself with, and the connections that you make along the journey. Those three things are what matter. And Jacob told me very early on, he goes, listen, you're going to make a lot of connections in your life, and there are going to be doors that are wide open. The question is, you have to ask yourself, is when that door is wide open, are you willing to go through it? Are you ready to take the step to go through that door? And if you aren't, that door may close and you may never get that opportunity again in your entire life. And that's something that always stuck in the back of my head was, I know in my life there's going to be connections that I make even at my small little school at University of Tampa, because I'm going to go out, I'm going to try and make as many connections as possible. And when that door opens, I better be ready to not only just go through it, but run through that door full steam and be completely ready for what's on the other side. And I think that's what people need to understand. That's what people need to take away, is that it doesn't matter the school name, the prestige, everything that's going on. It's sad because these kids that their parents did this, I mean, they may or may not have known about it, but in essence, like, they're gonna be tarnished in some regard for a while, and it may or may not have even been their choice for what their parents did. And I hope a lot of them didn't look up with this like, hey, I need to get into USC just because I want to party, or oh, I want to get into UCLA just because I want to party, and mom and dad spend $500,000 or $1 million to try and get me in. Like, that's just stupid. That's just absolutely stupid. But these kids now are going to have an uphill battle and say, hey, how do I figure this out on my own? Because now they're associated with something that is horrible, and their parents are going to face the consequences of what transpired. And it's a shame. It really is a shame. And I really just wanted to jump on really quickly and talk about it, because I don't think I've ever again, I don't talk a lot about news. It's something that's relevant, but I wanted to give my insight and my perspective of like this. Like, it's happened. It happened, but it's been something that's happened over and over again. I think the college system itself is broken. We have to understand that it's meant to generate revenue, period. And is that a bad? I don't look at them as a bad thing. You just need to understand the context of it before going into it. Like, you don't need to go, oh, screw that school, they're just trying to get my money. Cool. No one forced you to go to that school. Go somewhere else. But on the other side, the real question is, and the real fact of the matter is, for most things, for 99% of things, it doesn't matter where you go to. It really does not matter, because I know people that have graduated from some of the best universities in the world, great degrees, great GPA, and they have no idea what the hell they want to do. They're doing a job that probably isn't even relevant to what they got their degree in. And so the question is, you waste all this time, you spend all this time, energy, and effort for what? So again, kids, if you're listening to this and you're going into college, or parents, if you're like, hey, I'm really pushing my kids to go into school, I think it's a great choice. Like, I've literally sat back, I talked with the team the other day on this. I was like, wow, fortunately I'm not having, I don't think I'm going to have kids in the next couple of years. Like, eventually, yes, absolutely, but I still got some time. But I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, what would I do for my kids? Like, what would I do? Like, meaning, am I gonna try and push them to go to college? Am I gonna try and homeschool them or send them off to school? But I think the experience is what made an impact on my life. And so that's where I battle this. Like, I don't necessarily think it was the information, it was the experience. It was the, hey, you're on your own, figure it out. Hey, you got to have a job and play baseball and go to classes. Hey, you got to make sure you balance your social life with your work life, with your academic life. Hey, you got to make connections, because at the end of the day, you're going to graduate in 4 years, and then what? What are you going to do after that? And that pushed me from the day I walked into that door and the day I met Dr. Wilson to go, wow, this guy's really cool. He asked for participants in research, and I was going to be the first one to participate because it was the first activity I was involved in the university. And now we have multiple businesses together, and we're building things and helping people beyond what I could have ever imagined from the first day I walked in the doors, because I took action. I said, you know what? It's about the connections. I want to be connected to this guy. I want to see who's in his network and see if I can help them in any sort of way and learn from them. And I've just built mentors along the way. So my thought on it is this, and this is my wrapping up, closing thoughts, is it's a shame what happened. It's not something that's new. But in essence, what matters at the end of the day is the experience. And ultimately, people will take action on it. Some people won't take action on it. And those are going to be the people who are sitting there that spent that are $150,000 in debt from student loans, and they're working an accounting job when they went to school for finance, and or they're working for some nonprofit and they went to school for some other degree, and it's just because it's a job, and it has nothing to do with the relevance of what they actually went to school for, because they didn't take action while they were in school. They didn't take action and make the connections to set themselves up for success after school. And so I think that's just a whole bunch of horse, you know what, that, oh, you need to go to a prestigious school to be successful. It's crazy. It's crazy what transpired. I don't approve of it. I think it's awful. And I think it's going to be a big lesson learned for many people. And I'm glad they're sort of bringing this to light, because hopefully parents and students understand that, listen, just because it says this prestigious university on your degree doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. And so what matters is what you do with your actual degree and what you do outside of the classroom. So I hope that resonates with a lot of people, and I really do hope there are some kids that listen to this and understand that no, mommy and daddy shouldn't be paying for you to get into places, or being like, hey, this is a better opportunity just because I have the money to do so. No, like, work, grind, find your own path, and understand that at the end of the day, what matters is what's going to transpire outside of the classroom, and what you do on your own. That's what's going to ultimately dictate your future. Not you learning how to write cursive or how to write a poem inside of English Lit. Yeah, if that's your field, maybe, but like, that's not going to have an impact. What's going to have an impact is your dedication to say, I'm going to show up on time and be present. I'm going to get work done on time. I'm going to balance friends and family. I'm going to make connections, all of those things. That's what's going to dictate the rest of your future and the rest of your life. So, sorry for the ramble, guys. I'm just passionate about it, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. It's a very important topic, and I really think it can touch high school, college, and parents of children who are preparing for college, and understanding, like, there's a lot more that goes into it versus just a prestigious name of a university. And I really, really hope that people can take that away with them today. So with that being said, guys, as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. You know the deal. Make positivity louder each and every day, and you guys will be the first ones to know about all these new exclusive things that we'll be launching and will be coming out very soon. And I appreciate each and every one of you jumping on. Talk to you guys later.